You ready? Yeah. All right. The Rebbe is explaining something very subtle. It is so subtle that is not giving it its own identity. It is pointing. There's a subtle element in here. We will start from the line that begins Shebo b'bchinas helem ha'atzmi. That's in page Chav Hey, and it's approximately 10 lines from the top. Shebo b'bchinas helem ha'atzmi. And at the very end of that line, and what we have just finished saying is that in the Helem Ha'atzmi, the Tanakh HaPoshet Ha'atzmi itself, there are two madrigas. As we said, there is the Tanakh Shabo B'Murgash, Sholei Bo B'Murgash. And even that which is Bo B'Murgash is also called Tanakh Ha'atzmi, HaPoshet. Atzmi means that it has no beginning. Atzmi means that there is not anything that's causing it. And yet, he's saying that this is b'chokhmah. And now at the end of that line, v'hagam she'hakoil hu b'chinas ha'tayna go atzmi, that although that all of this, which means even the Helem Ha'atzmi as it is contained and it manifests itself in Chokhmah Hagdumo, so to speak, in the Chokhmah, Helem Ha'atzmi the Chokhmah, yet still, yesh bozeh chiluk, there is nevertheless a difference. Between how this is kolo, how this is actually included in part and parcel of the etzem itself, and versus that as it comes in the bechina that's called Helem Ha'atzmi D'Chochma. Helem Ha'atzmi D'Chochma itself is a phenomenal statement, because Chochma, as we pointed out many times, Chochmah means identity. What is the meaning Helem Ha'atzmi D'Chochma? If Chochmah is Behelem, then it's not Chochmah. So therefore, but this is directly pointing our attention to understand that yes, indeed, just as we explain in general, that all the koichos are actually representative of the truth of the nefesh. This is not an add-on aspect that there are koichos. This is really representative of the truth of the nefesh. It is part of the atmosphere of the nefesh. So, certainly, chokhmah. There is an element of atzmius in chokhmah, even though chokhmah is a koyach. And as we always try to explain it, that re'iyah, sight, is a proper demonstration of what Chokhmah is. And what is one phenomenon of sight, as we pointed out many times, many things, and one phenomenon of sight is that sight is automatic. There is no activity involved in sight. In every other product, there's an activity involved. There's a sense, I'm getting something, I'm getting aware of something. I'm becoming aware of something by some kind of experience. Not so in sight. In sight, when we see it, it's saying, of course I see it. Of course it's there. There's no discovery. But in fact, it is a discovery. Excuse me. Where do we see that it's a discovery? Because you can close your eyes and not see. But when you do see, it's an automatic thing. And the reason, the point of this is, I mean, physically we're talking about sight, which is chokhmah, only a muscle of chokhmah, but really there's an external thing. But it is a proper muscle. As we said all the time, everything is replicated at every different levels. Why is it that we actually see without any novelty, without any experience that I'm getting to know it by virtue of some kind of an experience? It is there automatically. And that is because this element of sight, this element of recognition that there is a fundamental reality, this is actually true to the nefesh. We know that without ever experiencing it. This is the Helam Ho'at, this is a muscle, so to speak, but nevertheless, in the Gashmizik world, it's a very blatant statement. You're experiencing something without any experience, any activity. Which means that you're actually part and parcel of the essential truth of it itself. This is pointing to the Ayin that there is the Helam Ho'atzmi, that that Chokhmah has Helam Ho'atzmi, the Chokhmah, the essential element of Chokhmah. Chokhmah is not coming into being when it is active. There is an essential element of Chokhmah within the Yetzim itself. And within that Helam Ho'atzmi, the Chokhmah, there is the full cognizance of the truth of the nefesh. And this is what we're saying, that the Oinag Ho'atzmi is present, is known in the Etzem, and the way it's called in the Etzem, and it is also known and present the way it is known in Helam Ho'atzmi the Chokhmah. This is all repetitive things, but there's no point, we can't go on without bringing this to the forefront. What is the relationship between Oinag and Chokhmah? That this Oinag is contained and recognized in the Helam Ho'atzmi the Chokhmah. So we explained that the whole union of Chokhmah, Seichel Bichlal, and particularly Chokhmah, is that it relates to that which has a reality to it, not just an insignificant presence. Reality is expressed in the union of Oinag, as we discussed yesterday. Therefore, there is the Helam Ho'atzmi of the Oinag Ho'atzmi, or Oinag HaPoshut, as it is contained in Helam Ho'atzmi the Chokhmah. And yet we have to understand, even though both are Helam Ho'atzmi, as it says here, it is still Helam Ho'atzmi. It is the fundamental reality, Tanug Ho'atzmi, Hakinu Tanug Ho'atzmi. There's a difference the way the Tanug Ho'atzmi is in Etzem and the way it is in Helam Ho'atzmi the Chochmah. And now we're going to continue further. We underline Commission Bob B'chinas Helam Ho'atzmi the Chochmah. V'ho'inyan hu.
The morgush. Is this going to be explained, the morgush of this Helam?
Let's continue. V'ho'inyan hu. And the inyan is the inyan that is going to be explained, and what still needs to be explained is this. This, as I said, this is a fundamental subtlety. We're talking about Oinog Ho'atzmi. Atzmi means that it is an essential, a real essence, not something that's caused by something. And Chochmah has it in Helam Ho'atzmi, the Chochmah, which means it has it as an Atzmi, not as a discovered and experienced element, but as an Atzmi. And yet, there's a difference between this Atzmi and that Atzmi. V'ho'inyan hu. The principle in this is V'hinei gam b'madregos shehem b'chinas atzmiyois. We have to understand that even in madregos shehem b'chinas atzmiyos, which are the b'china of atzmiyos, we explained many times what is bechina. Bechina means that you're referring to something that cannot be demonstrated. It's an intangible. Atzmi is an intangible by definition. What is the definition of a tangible? As we pointed out many times, how do you touch the table? By its periphery, by outside, because there is a place where the table is not, and there's a place where the table is. This is how you touch the table. If the table were everywhere, you couldn't touch it. Why is there a place where the table is not? Because it is not a fundamental truth that the table should be. As a matter of fact, the fundamental truth is that table is not. You bring it in. So, whatever you bring in, you can touch. Atzmi is that phenomenon, that bechina. There's no way to give it a tangible definition. That bechina, that is in essence, which means it's automatically there. It is not. There is no place where it is not. There is no time when it is not, because it's atzmi. Therefore, if it is atzmi, it lends to logic. Here's where we begin to apply logic, that this atzmi is identical whatever you identify it as, because it's atzmi. It is everywhere atzmi and everywhere the same way. No. Even the madreges shein bechinas atzmius, even those madreges which have this quality of atzmi, the bekol mokim sheheim, which means that b'chol mokim shehem, that wherever they are, harei zeh bechinas atzmus. Wherever they are to be recognized, they are the bechina of atzmus. That is meaning bechinas atzmius. Nevertheless, yesh bo zeh chiluk mimadrego lemadrego. Still, there is a difference from one madrega to another. Even though it is atzmi and it remains atzmi everywhere. Despite the fact, while shehakoil hu ho'etzem mamash, that all of it, at all madreges, it is ho'etzem mamash, and yet it is ho'etzem mamash. It's truly the etzem, and yet there's a difference in madreges. It's a difference how the etzem is in one madrega and how the etzem is in another. Ubir ho'inyan biktsara. Ho. To clarify this thing, in brief, and as we pointed out, no matter how much this becomes clarified, we can only relate to it with the subtleties of Chochmah. There is no tangible element in this. K'moi bechinas atik. As for example, this is like an illustration of the principle. K'moi bechinas atik, as in the case of the bechina of atik. What is the bechina of atik? So the word atik, we all know that atik, generally speaking, atik is a reference to that madrega which we call keser. And that madrega which we call keser, generally speaking, we say that it contains two madregas. There is a oineg and rotzen, pnimius atik, and there is chitzonius atik. But overall, the bechina of atik is shehu ha'atokas ho'atzmus kabiyoch. The bechina of atik is, this is why it's called atik. I said there are many reasons it's called atik. The most principal element in atik is ha'atokas ho'atzmus. Ha'atokas ho'atzmus means the personification of atzmus. Ha'atoka means copying over.
What? Personification?
Personification. Ha'atokas ho'atzmus kaviyoch. A replication of atzmus. The mishum zeh, where as a result of that, because this atik is really ha'tokas ho'atzmus, it's really a replication, a personification of atzmus. It is not a koyach. It is not an inyan. It is a personification of Atzmus itself, of an Atzm. The Mishum Zeh, where because of this, because the Iyum von Atik is Hatokas or Atzmus, so then, Gam Kmei Shehu B'Bchinas Kesed Atzilus, even as it is in that Madrege, B'Bchina, in that state, that it's called Kesed Atzilus, the crown of Atzilus. And what is the implication in the term Keser? If we say this is a Keser Atzilus, means that it has some kind of a correlationship with Atzilus. It's the crown of it. It's that which elevates it, whatever that means. But it has a relationship. So, Gam Kmei Shehu B'Chinas Kesed Atzilus. Harei Zeh B'Bchinas Ha'atoko V'Ha'avdolo L'Gamre Mehanu Etzor. And here we have, in this sentence, we have another inference, another meaning to the word Atik. Ha'atoko v'havdo. Ha'atoko means remote and removed. Netak, moved away. So we have two meanings of the word Atik. One is ha'atokas or atzmis, which means a replication of the Yatzim, a representation of the Yatzim. And the other is ha'atoka. Ha'atoka means remote, removed. So this ha'atokas or atzmus, he said, is we have it even on Kesed Atzilus. Kesed Atzilus is also called Hatokas or Atzmus. And then, even though this is Kesed Atzilus, which means it is already the crown of Atzilus, and this is the source of Atzilus, and it provides, so to speak, the oil for Atzilus. Even at that level, it is remote from Atzilus, netak. So this is like having two totally different, perhaps even opposite qualities in one. On one hand, we say this is Kesed Atzilus. This is what provides the Kesed, the crown for Atzilus, what provides the Atzmius for Atzilus. At the same time, we say that is actually Netak, it is remote, and remote means it cannot be related to Atzilus. So we'll go into this as slowly as we go. The Rebbe himself says this is going to be a brief presentation. But the principle that we just now introduced is something that we are repetitively, constantly, repeatedly mentioning. And that is that we have in the human being also a replication and a representation of this type. On the one hand, the human being is in a body, in the world. On the other hand, he is not in the world. He's remote from the world. His interest and his essence, which is his mind, can't even relate to it. He is there to influence it, not to be part of it.
why is it two? Why does it seem like two opposite things? I mean, the etzem, if the etzem is totally, because there's a copying of the etzem, that means that he's not of this world. It's a quality. It's a different thing. I mean, but why?
But then becomes Kesed Atzilus. It actually influences Atzilus. How is it remote?
The copying makes it in an environment that it has influence over.
Yeah, it has an influence. It's a Kesed Atzilus. And this Hatokas Atzmus is Hatokas Atzmus, which means it is. Yes, it is a replication. It's a copy. But what is a replication of? Of an atzmi, of the atzmi element, rather than its gilui, its impression. The atzmius element itself. And this is, this, here we have two aspects in the same place. This is Kesed Atzilus. And, okay, actually Rebbe is going to conclude it. And even as it is Kesed Atzilus, it has the quality of total separation. Aloofness from the Netzor. It is not part of the Netzor. This again is replicated in the human being, as we pointed out many times. The human being, we say, begins from Chochmah. What about Rotzen and Noinik, which is part of the human being? It's not part of the human being. It's the essence of the Neshama. It's not mislabish in the cane. This is the similar thing. It's a netak. Even though it becomes Hatoko, the Abdullah Gamer Mehanatzolim, it's totally separate from the Intzolim, and yet, Mikomokom, yet still, it qualified as a memutza, as an intermediary. Ben Hamatzil Vanetzon. It also has the Indian that is a mamutza. It's an intermediary between the matzil, means the source, one that allows the emanation, and that's all those who emanate. And it's a mamutza. What is the meaning of a mutza? A mamutza, we have the klal. A mamutza means an aspect, the madrega, that actually relates to both, to the higher and to the lower. If it can relate to both, so then it is neither. And even though it has an atzmius element, and it remains, so to speak, hatokas or atzmus, it actually represents the atzmus. It is not the same madriga of atzmi the way it is before and higher in the source. Both are atzmi. And here's the conclusion of this. the Bechinas Atzmus HaMatzil, where the Atzmus HaMatzil, the say Keser, is a memutza between a Matzil and a Tzolim. Because the Atzmus HaMatzil Ein Be'erech U'Begeder HaNetzolim Klal is not in proximity and is not in the gather, within the fence, so to speak, of the Netzolim at all. Or Bechinas Keser, and then Bechinas HaKeser Shekolu Beis Madreges, that incorporates two Madreges. What are the two Madreges? The Atik, Atik v'Arich. It has two Madreges. One, the upper Madrege is called Atik, which means this is the copy of the Etzem. And then Arich, this is the source of the Spheres Atzilus. Harehu memutza, and therefore he forms that keser provides for the union memutza of the intermediate.
Both those midregas are called Bechinas Atzmius.
What?
Both those midregas are.
It's all part of the Etzma. Keser is Etzma. Okay, we'll interrupt now, and Mitzvah Hashem, we'll pick up tomorrow to elaborate on this a little more. Have a good day. Call to.
You can't really say that Atmos has different parts to it,
That's right.
but yet we're saying there's a part which is for itself, and there's a part.
That's right. At the point of Keser, yes. So this
There's
is
an aspect of
this
it,
is
not a
not. This is not. As I said, these are things. If we want to really, if we are limited to understand things with our hands, forget it. Let's go to the book. This is where we have to employ a very subtle, fine sense. Chochmah is also of that. And the Chochmah we have pointed out, it's a really phenomenal thing. It's a wonderful motion, right? Sight is an action, and yet it's devoid of action. We do not begin to realize to what extent that is significant in our lives. We'll pick it up in a minute.